For anthropologists at the Berndt Museum in Perth, it was a wonderful surprise. A 4-year project uncovered a trove of forgotten treasures packed away in a university basement. They're about to become part of a world-first exhibition that could change the lives of Aboriginal people. Nikki Wilson-Smith reports from Western Australia and warns this story may contain images of Indigenous people who have died.
In our display, we actually had a display about the historic photographic collection. And there, on the wall, was a photograph of this woman who walked into the museum, but we didn't know it was her.
When Laurel Nannup visited the Berndt Museum with an art class, she was shocked to find mounted on the wall a picture of herself at Wandering Mission.
I just got all excited when I seen all the old girls there in a photo.
What did you do when you saw the photograph?
Oh, did a little squeal, I suppose.
Laurel Nannup is one of the stolen generation and had no idea the photo existed.
That's me. This is my best friend Cora. This is Enid Spratt, Anne Miller and Enid Anderson.
John Stanton is the director of the Berndt Museum of Anthropology, and he's curated the collection since 1978. He's witnessed the importance of these objects firsthand.
Already we have a number of examples of families reconstituting themselves through the linkages provided by these photographs. And that's a pretty powerful experience for them, and it's a very rewarding and enriching experience for people like myself.
The Berndt Museum is one of the world's greatest collections of art and photographs from Australia and the Pacific, containing more than 11,000 pieces of art and 70,000 historic photographs.
The richness and diversity of those items is something that's quite unique in Australia. This is a very fragile piece, collected in 1950 by Ron and Catherine Berndt in the New Guinea Highlands.
For more than 30 years, this collection has been locked in a basement at the University of Western Australia.
It was a pretty horrific experience because the museum grew enormously. The storage was so cramped we couldn't get to things, we had to move something to get to something behind it. As a result, things were deteriorating. So the university had a real concern that we halt the deterioration by at least boxing everything.
While some of the collection has been accessed by the public, the 4-year preservation project also uncovered some long-forgotten treasures. And now, for the first time, these pieces will be on public display.
This is probably the oldest bark painting that exists in any collection. It was collected in the mid-1850s in Arnhem Land by the then administrator. It incorporates what that artist was thinking about in the days that he did that work all those years ago in mid-1850s, long before there was any way of recording those things.
The Berndt Museum was established by Ronald and Catherine Berndt, world leaders in anthropology who spent 60 years gathering artefacts in Australia and the Pacific.
They're part of a living religion. It's not just something that is static or something that happened in the past. Whatever was done in the past is relevant to the present.
They'd spent their lifetime since their teen years amassing a collection that was quite broad in its scope, and that they knew it needed a proper home. After they'd passed on, they wanted the collection to be kept together. They wanted it to be used for educating the public, for teaching and research. But above all, they wanted to respect the cultures from which the collections had come from.
Teaching the public about Indigenous cultures is a lifelong project for the museum, and right now it's saving for a permanent exhibition space in Perth so that people from around the world can better understand Australia's Indigenous people. Julie Dowling is an Indigenous artist whose work was purchased for the collection by John Stanton.
Just by chance he saw one of my works and then remembers the face and remembered what I was up to and went, "Hey, I know you," and figured out that I was probably saying something that was important for other people to see.
She says it's important for her people to have a permanent home that can preserve the history of Aboriginal families.
Everything that you see in that place is regarded as a story of importance, and even if the site's unknown or the information has got no label on it, it actually tells a story about exactly who we are.
The collection also tells the story of Laurel Nannup and her son Brett, one that they'd love to see preserved for their family in future generations.
Gave us a good sense of who we are, where Mum's experience was, but also it was pretty sad because Mum being placed in the mission, got to miss out on a lot of connection to country. With these photographs, gave us a more important understanding and a knowledge of who we are and who we're connected to.
Nikki Wilson-Smith report.